you for keeping it tuned into this busy edition of the Sports Cubicle here on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. And even though we are full-throated, full-throttled, fully gorged in NFL football, there is something that's even got us more excited than all of that, and it is the prospect of October baseball in the north side of Chicago. And we are breaking it all down as the Cubs magic number as of this recording is number 1, will be at 0 in just a couple hours. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with the marvelous one, Dan Marver, and joining us from Cubs on Tap, from Cubby's Crib, from right here at the mother station at Heartland Signal. He is our brother. He's your brother. He is here to get us ready for some October baseball. He is Rich Eberwein. Rich, welcome back to the show, brother. How you been?
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me again. Like you said, exciting time right now. I'd rather be watching Cubs baseball than Chicago Bears football. That stuff just makes me sad. So. Don't even want to talk about that.
Well, one of the teams that did play at Wrigley Field and now has their own home has a lot of things to get right this coming up Sunday, but a team that seems to have rid the tidal waves, that have gone through the choppy waters and finding themselves in a position where they seem to be getting a little bit hot. Things are getting a little bit better. Before we get to that, I want to talk to you and Marver about this. Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Some good, bad, indifferent news, depending on how you feel about what the contract, the future of Kyle Tucker on this team is. If you're somebody who wanted to see him play in October baseball, in meaningful baseball, that might not be the case because we didn't get a good update. If you wanted to see him get a contract for next year, definitely seems like that's out of the realm of possibility. If you're somebody who doesn't want to see the Cubs pay a lot of money, this is news you wanted to hear. When you saw what Craig Counsell had to say, where time is running out, he needs to play regular season baseball before postseason baseball. They're going to go see their own physicians now, the Kyle Tucker team. Where are you at, Rich, on what we found out about Kyle Tucker heading into these last few weeks of baseball?
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, this morning, Craig Counsell told the media that Kyle Tucker is going to he actually said that his progress in his calf rehab has plateaued and that he's going to see his own team of physicians that he goes to in the offseason, I guess, which is down in Florida. That is obviously not great news. Doesn't sound like his calf is healing at the rate that they want it to. To me, before this news came out, it sounded like that at earliest he would be back for the playoffs, which is obviously not ideal. Now that's looking even more likely. Not ideal because you don't want him to just get thrown into the playoff lineup cold, right? After not playing any regular season games for close to a month, right? But, on the flip side, right, it's like we are talking about one of those guys in MLB who can he can find it, right? He can lock in, and he is one of those dudes who has proven to be an MVP caliber player. So maybe, when postseason baseball comes around and he needs to step up, he can just, kind of overcome all those physical issues and, just a mind over matter type of things. That's the hope, right? And the other part of this too is he'll be highly motivated because, to your point, he's going to be a free agent this year. And this will be his last chance to showcase to teams that he is one of those $350 million players in MLB. So, the playoffs are kind of his last chance to do that. So it's concerning, right? You hope that he gets to the point where he can actually come back and play for the Cubs in the wild card, obviously, because that will be a major boost to the lineup. Lineup that is kind of, turned things around. You touched on that a little bit. Like they've looked more like themselves in the first half of the season. They're kind of getting hot and stacking up series wins. But again, not really scoring runs in tons of bunches. They've only scored double-digit runs once in September. It's more like the pitching has kind of, helped them keep afloat as well. So, but, it is good that they're stacking up wins right now and getting hot at the right time, because mid-September going right into the playoffs, like that could, and once you're in the playoffs and they're about to be, anything could happen. And if you're hot, crazy stuff can happen in the MLB playoffs.
Yeah, you never want to be peaking in August. You want to be doing it as you get towards the end of September, if you can help it, all of September. But before I throw it to Marver, what is the difference between having a Kyle Tucker at 70, 80, 85% in your lineup in the postseason than not having him at all. Is there where is that number for you where you're like, I need him in this lineup, even if he's not at 100%? What is it? Is it a 75% Kyle Tucker is better than no Kyle Tucker?
I think it is because, if it is a calf issue and he's still not 100%, you can have him DH, right? And then have Seiya Suzuki play right field. Defensively, is that ideal? I guess not, but I really don't think Kyle Tucker is that much better than Seiya Suzuki on defense in right field anyway. So I don't think it's really hurting you that much, but the potential of being able to score runs in bunches goes up exponentially when Tucker is in the lineup, because even when he was going through that prolonged slump, right, in July and August, he was still walking a ton. He's getting on base, he's doing his job, and it's more so that like Seiya Suzuki was slumping as well, where the runs weren't coming in. So I think just having him in the lineup can elevate the entire team exponentially and give you that, just that extra boost that you could need to potentially put you over the edge and win a playoff series against a tough team, which is probably looking like the San Diego Padres.
Marvelous. What are your thoughts as you hear that Kyle Tucker, it has not gone in the way that the training staff had hoped? You hearing what Craig Counsell had to say before first pitch against Pittsburgh, and like Rich brought up, you have a tough series. Probably at home if you stay the course and you do what you're supposed to, a 3-game series in Chicago. Does it worry you that Kyle Tucker might not be on the playoff roster? What do you think about his future as a Cub or as a free agent in general as he's going through this injury rehab?
Okay. First of all, WCPT, we like to tell the truth. As of today, we're talking, and it's Wednesday, they're playing Pittsburgh. They're in the playoffs, period, because they have the tiebreaker over Arizona, no matter what Marquis is telling you. Number two, you remember Tucker with his hand injury? Tucker with the hand injury I guess it's better than no Tucker at all. But here's the problem: if he DHs, he still has to run the bases, and I don't know, how good he would be at running the bases. So I mean, they in the absence of Tucker, Ballesteros has done a pretty good job actually as a DH. So maybe they could live with him. But there's a little question in my mind that the Cubs will be at home a week from Tuesday, probably against the Padres. And you know what the main thing is about playoff series? Pitching. And and right now, I mean, Horton looks solid. I mean, he's gonna be the rookie of the year. So I think that the pitching is even a more significant issue than Tucker. And Tucker, I mean, they're grooming Casey to play right field, and that's probably what's going to end up happening. And they have Alcantara. And so, I mean, normally they go for the most money anyway. So where is he going to go? To a major market like New York or LA or something? I mean, whether he plays or not. But this is definitely a very big negative that he goes to Tampa with here, less like 10 days before the playoffs start. I mean, it looks unlikely that he's going to be 100%. And I'm not sure how much action he will get, in the homestand against the Mets and the Cardinals this week. So, I'm just thinking of Kyle Tucker with a hand injury, and is gimpy. So that's a problem in my opinion.
No, and I'm really glad you brought up that idea that we have seen Kyle Tucker play under, not being 100%, whether he's hurt or injured. We've seen him out there, and whether it was PCA or some of these other Cubs throughout this season, we've seen them have to deal with injuries and what it's done to them in the lineup, and how taking them out and giving us some time to rest has really helped, reboot a lot of these guys in what has been a tough second half, and hopefully they're riding the ship in that. But Marver, I guess before we throw it to Rich's expertise as he breaks this down every single day covering the team, and of course over on Cubs on Tap on Cubby's Crib, but more Cubs on Tap, you guys are doing live streams after almost every game. You guys are there taking care of the Cub fan. So before we throw it to Rich, I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Marver, about the pitching staff. You brought it up, it kind of being the diamond in the rough when it comes to the entire season that the Cubs have had, the ups and downs. The pitching staff has kind of been the anchor of it. Are you right now nervous? Are you content? Where are you with the starting lineup going against a lineup like San Diego, the prospect of potential playoff date with the Milwaukee Brewers, seeing how this pitching staff has been constructed, has been built this entire season? Where's your confidence level on what has been the strongest point of this team, but seems to have never really gotten the praise or the hype that other rotations, other bullpens have gotten? Where's your confidence level on the Chicago Cubs rotation and pitching staff?
overall, Boyd's been amazing, but in this Pittsburgh Wednesday game, he was hammered a 3-run homer early. So I mean, he's been solid all year around, and as a kickoff move is amazing. I can't believe it's not a balk. It's like it's so good. And Imanaga, I mean, he's gonna be the Imanaga. He can usually do a good job, and Tyone's back. So what's going to happen is, I mean, if they have to play the whole 3 games, that's the problem with being a wild card. Then you have to come back after Thursday, presumably, to now play a Milwaukee, let's say, on Saturday on the road. So it is kind of a challenge for the wild card team with this best of 3 thing while another team's sitting out and resting for almost a week. But I think that they are deep enough in the bullpen. I mean, the bullpen has really shown a great amount of talent. I mean, Kittredge has stepped in now with Valencia out, and they've been getting a lot of good work out of the pen in general, particularly with Keller. So I think that's a big key too, that they can pick up a bunch of innings from the bullpen if they need to, and have enough arms to weather a really tough stretch where they go Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday. I mean, that's crazy, but at least it isn't going to be a lot of travel. Some of these teams have to go L.A., New York. They would just go Chicago, Milwaukee. So I think that would be a plus.
So, speaking of what we thought is a strength, as Marver said here on WCPT, we make sure that we tell you the truth. And as of this recording, it is a Wednesday day game in Wrigley, and Matthew Boyd gives up 3 runs in the first inning. The Cubs offense explodes for 4 runs in the first inning, and it brings me to you, Rich, where when you're looking at a 3-game series, when you're looking at then a 5-game series, if somehow you get out of that San Diego matchup, what is the rotation going to look like? What is Craig Counsell going to do when it comes to the guys he trusts in a tight game in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning in high leverage situations? What are you looking at after these 4, 5, 6 months of watching this team? And it's come down to 3 games.
Yeah.
Comes down to a 3-game series. What do you see with the pitching rotation and the entire bullpen? How does it shake out? What is it going to look like for us?
Yeah, I think in this wild card series, there's going to be some tough decisions to make. We were touching on Matthew Boyd. It really looks like he is going through some major arm fatigue right now, which is expected, which is one of the reasons I was, screaming my head off when he was the only starting pitching addition, that the major starting pitching addition from last offseason. It's like, he has been amazing for us this year, but arm fatigue is a real thing right now. Like he is thrown 172 innings. That is by far the most he has thrown since 2019 in 7 years. He has not even eclipsed 100 innings, so he has given up at least 3 earned runs in 6 of his last 8 starts. It's looking like he might not be trustworthy enough to start in a wild card series. So, after everything we've seen from Cade Horton in the second half, rookie of the year lock almost, 0.8 something ERA in 53 innings since the All-Star break. I would trust Cade Horton in game 1 of the wild card series, honestly. And if not, you're going with Shota. So those are your game 1 and 2 starters in whatever order. Game 3, it really doesn't look like Matthew Boyd can be trusted as a starter right now, which is nothing against him, right? It's a physical thing. Like his arm just physically looks fatigued right now. He's got, bases loaded again in the second inning today. He's had a lot of traffic on the bases in the last few games. So, in game 3, you're probably looking at either Jameson Taillon or Javier Assad, or some combination of a piggyback with Taillon and then Assad or whatever. You have options. You have Colin Ray as well. So, it's all about just getting past that series, right? And doing what you can to win that series. I don't know if Matthew Boyd gives you the best chance right now. But to Marver's point too, the bullpen has been incredible in September. They have a 2.96 ERA since September 1st, which is 5th best in the league. Most of that was without closer Daniel Palencia. So, you have a solid group of trustworthy arms that you can put in high leverage situations like Brad Keller, Caleb Thielbar, Andrew Kittredge, Drew Pomeranz, and then Mike Soroka could turn into another one of those trustworthy arms. His velocity is back. He just got back from the injured list. He's touching 96 miles an hour with his fastball. He's got a nasty slider. Like that could be another 5th guy that you can trust. And if Porter Hodge can figure his stuff out and stop walking guys, like he's got a nice string of scoreless starts going on, or scoreless outings going on right now. So yeah, the bullpen has been a major strength right now. Matthew Boyd, is a big question mark for me right now. But I would lean on Cade Horton and Shota Imanaga in those first two games. You'll probably go against Nick Pivetta and then Dylan Cease if it's the Padres. So, it's tough. It's tall task. But that's the playoffs, man. So we'll see what happens.
You hear the voice every single month as he joins us here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch on WCPT 820 AM, Heartland Signal, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. He is Rich Eberwein. You can check him out on Cubs on Tap at Cubby's Crib, and of course right here on the mothership at Heartland Signal. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with the one and only, the marvelous one, Dan Marver, as we get ready for playoff baseball here in Chicago for the Northsiders. The Chicago Cubs magic number is 1, but like the marvelous one has said, it's official with the tiebreaker of Arizona. The Cubs will be playing meaningful baseball at the end of the month, which is amazing for a lot of Cub fans to hear that there will be some really exciting times. Hopefully a little bit, a World Series would be great, but a little bit of entertainment in October, especially if the Bears decide that they don't want to give us that entertainment on Sundays, which brings me to this point, Rich, and I'll throw it to Marver after we kind of hear you break this down, because we know that the playoff matchups are still a little fluid. We kind of know the big players. We kind of know the names that are going to be in here in the National League. We understand who the big dogs are, where if you're trying to get to the World Series, what the route's going to be. But if you're right now looking at what the standings look at, what the playoff matchups might be, the Chicago Cubs versus the San Diego Padres, a lot of history there, a lot of old time demons and devils that need to get exercised, if you will. Is this the easiest path for the Chicago Cubs? What would be, knowing that you're not going to win the division, so you're not going to get that bye, looking at what the playoff matchups look like, seeing how this team has been constructed, seeing how the bullpen and starting rotation have carried this team, especially the last few months, what is the easiest way for the Chicago Cubs to win the pennant?
Well, I don't know if there is an easy way, but I guess the only easier way would be if they won the division and got a bye in the wild card round. But I'm also fine with them just going into the wild card, because I also hate this idea of like them sitting around for like the equivalent of what would be an all-star break and not playing games. And, then they come out and are just like not hitting anything in the NLDS. Like, I like the idea of them getting hot now, going right into the wild card and hopefully winning the wild card and then straight into the NLDS. Like, that's a good path. Is the Padres an easy team to play? No. I mean, they have, like I was saying, Nick Pivetta and Michael King and Dylan Cease in the rotation, and they have a really nasty bullpen. Even though they lost Jason Adam earlier this month, they still got like 3 guys who are worthy of being a true legitimate closer in the 9th inning in their bullpen, and their bullpen is scary. And then they have stars like Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. So it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be easy against anybody. Like, either the only other option that I'd say would be easier is if you face the Mets, because the Mets are kind of falling on their faces right now in September. But, as things are shaking out, they're probably going to play the Dodgers. So, after the Padres, you're looking at probably facing the Brewers.
So let me ask you this. I'm glad, and then we'll toss it to Marver on this one, because you bring it up, right? Like, whether it was the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, there's a lot of things that you could say from each team that they're good. This is not a weak playoffs. This is not a year where a garbage scrub team has made it. But I guess the real question is it easier to make it to the pennant, to make it to the NLCS, to go through Milwaukee or Philadelphia? Which team is more set up to give the Cubs headaches? Which team is set up for the Cubs to have a legit chance in it? Because I think we've seen the Brewers enough where you're like, it's kind of 50-50. There's both teams kind of feel like they could take each other at any given time. To me, it feels like the Phillies is all or nothing. It's either they're going to steamroll you, buzzsaw you, it's a 3-game sweep and they're on their way to a World Series, or 5-game series, the Cubs find a way to kind of squeeze the life out of them and they get out of it heading to the NLCS. In those scenarios, which one of those two teams do you think kind of gives the Cubs the biggest headache heading into potentially NLCS?
I think I would rather face the Brewers. I don't know. The Phillies are, I mean, they're a good team. 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 They're a good te I think the Phillies are World Series destined this
Mm,
year.
mm.
Maybe not to win it, but to win the pennant. I don't know. They're a scary team, man. They got star power. They got good pitching power. They lost Zach Wheeler, but they still got dogs in their rotation like Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez, Jesus Luzardo. They're scary, man. Obviously Bryce Harper, Schwarber is probably it's like having an MVP caliber season. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't like the idea of Schwarber hitting moonshots against the Cubs. Yeah. That would sting a lot, man. I don't know about that, but at the same time, the Brewers are always a pain in the Cubs' butts.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a toss up. I think the Brewers are a little bit weaker right now. Their rotation isn't clicking as much as it was earlier in the summer, and they lost their closer, McGill. So yeah, I don't know. I think I would rather face them. Yeah, that's the other thing about the Phillies. They went and traded for Johan Duran from the Twins, so they have an excellent closer as well. So I don't know, man. Either way, it's gonna be tough. But I think I would rather face the Brewers.
But Marver, I'm going to toss it to you in a second, and I want to hear your comp on this. This is how I see, because I think it's tough regardless of who they play in the wild card. But if we're just looking at the prospect of what it could potentially mean to either play the Phillies or the Brewers, I consider it like this. The Brewers Cubs kind of gives off college football playoff atmosphere vibes to it, where there's a lot of excitement. There's a neighborhood feel to it. There's brotherly and sisterly and cousinly love and hatred and rivalry. And there's going to be no time of transportation between the two teams, right? It's a 45-minute ride either way, more like 95, but you guys get the idea. And I think Phillies Cubs kind of gives off NFC Championship vibes, where both of them are huge for their own different reasons and they bring different type of energy. And I think it'd be unique. And I think baseball would love to see either one in an NLDS for the chance to get to the NLCS, because there's a possibility that we'll have two NL East teams going against each other, two NL Central teams going against each other for a chance to get to the NLCS. But Marver, before we get to all that, we do have the wild card, and then you have to look at the NLDS. What do you think is the easiest route for the Cubs to get out of early October into mid and late October? Is it staying put against San Diego? Would it have been being the NL Central champions? Where do you think this would have been the easiest route to see a repeat of 2016?
I'll echo. There is no easy route. I'm not sure the Mets will even be participating. It might be the Diamondbacks, but here's the deal. At least here, they're going to, the way that it's set up, they would play Milwaukee before Philadelphia. Maybe right. Philadelphia will get knocked off. Okay. Milwaukee, I don't know. The last time this happened, they had a way to bar Chicago people for going to Milwaukee. but that's not going to be as a tremendous home field disadvantage as Philadelphia would be or some other place. I agree. I don't want to see Schwarber damaging our scoreboard anymore.
Unless he's in a Cubs uniform.
Yeah.
Right. That's it's too bad there wasn't a DH back then. They would have kept him maybe. But the thing is that it looks like Philadelphia is going to get by whomever, whether it be, it's going to be a tough series when they likely play the Dodgers. But don't rule the Dodgers out either. We haven't mentioned them. They may be in the mix because they would presumably play Philly if they get by their wild card against New York or Arizona or whoever. But and they'd be at home. So that's the deal. I think the LA will be formidable too. Don't forget about them. But I think that they would maybe be the easiest route of all if LA was to knock Philadelphia off somehow. So I'm just adding in another layer to this that we had mentioned. I'm not too excited about playing Philadelphia either. Milwaukee, I think we'd have a chance. Philadelphia, I think they do have some destiny, but LA is LA. They're still a pretty good team, and so that's that. But I'm glad that with the crazy wild card setup, with all the games being in one stadium, that we're going to have the home field. It appears we have at the moment with a dozen games left, we're 5 ahead of San Diego. So that's pretty much certain. But San Diego has been up and down too, and it's going to be hard to beat them. But at least we'll be at home, and they'll have to drag their butts all the way from the West Coast, I presume. So and it's be 3 days in a row, and as pitching depth, very important, and with the 3 days in a row, and then a day off, and then 2 more games, presumably, if you advance. So I think that's going to be a big factor. And I'm glad to see that the lineup's clicking a little bit better. Horner is unbelievable. He may win the batting title. and Crow Armstrong showing some signs of life. And Hap has been great, and the defense is still good. And Shaw has been unbelievable as a third base defensively. So I mean, I think, and Bush too has been. I mean, they seem to be gelling a little bit with or without Tucker. So I think that they'd be that's formidable against any team. But I'd like to see Philadelphia get knocked off by LA. I had where we would play them, and then Milwaukee. I think it's 50-50, like we were saying. So that's the way it looks, and it all happens on Tuesday, the 30th of September, and then October 1st and 2nd would be the wild card dates, and that's coming up in a little over a week. So let's get excited.
And we will get excited in just a few weeks because we will be doing a playoff spectacular, of course, an open invite to Rich Eberwein to join us to give us his predictions, not just on what's going to happen between the Cubs and their opponents, but also the entire playoffs. Because I honestly believe that the National League has some awesome matchups, has some awesome legacy teams, some charter franchises, some 10-pull teams. And I think the American League has star performance breakouts guys kind of in there, right? Like the idea of Seattle making a run for it, or the Blue Jays or Detroit kind of getting out to the national eye. I think there's a lot of cool potential stuff going on in the playoffs, but we've been going on for a long time. So we're going to end it on this, boys, and I'm going to throw it to Rich, and I want to get his opinion on this because all season long, it's kind of been, when it wasn't about Kyle Tucker and it wasn't about PCA, we were talking about one person's impact the most on this team, and it is the manager, the skipper, the person in charge. And one of the things that I've been touting, that I've been kind of putting my hat on to say it will all be worth it if you get to the playoffs and Craig Counsell does what he does best, finds the guys he trusts in his pitching rotation, his staff, and getting the shutdown arms in his bullpen. So I guess, Rich, my question to you is this as much on Craig Counsell and the buttons he pushes, the people he goes with, more than almost anything else on this Cubs team heading into that series, potentially against San Diego or whatever team we want to put there against them? It kind of feels to me that this is why you brought in Craig Counsell, where these moments where so much was in the margin, you don't have the most explosive offense, but everything is kind of, everything being in the middle, everything being equal. Is this why you brought in Craig Counsell, for this moment to win within the margins, to win in the game in those small moments?
I mean, for sure. It's also on the players too, right? Like the buttons that Craig Counsell pushes basically is slotting them into the lineup and making pitching changes, right? So like it's incumbent on the players to perform too, though. So it's not all on Craig Counsell, in my opinion. I mean, who does he go to in what situation certainly matters, and he knows those guys best. And Thielbar and Keller have been in this bullpen for the only two guys who've been in the bullpen this whole year, so he knows them quite well. Obviously, Kittredge, Pomerantz, and Soroka, different story. Like, but he's utilizing Kittredge in save situations right now, so like he knows these guys, right? He knows what their strengths are and what who they're gonna perform well against. Like the Cubs, trust me, are always constantly thinking about stuff like that. That is what they do. That is why they're so analytical, probably too much to a fault at times, but. We won't know the answer to that question until after we see it play out in a playoff series, right? So, is Craig Counsell a major factor? Sure, but so is every other manager. I think it can at times. We put too much hype on how much impact the manager actually has on the team, but at the same time, do I want to see Nico Horner batting at the bottom of the lineup in the playoffs? I do not. He finally moved him up to the second spot for the, this series because he's been red hot and on fire and about to win a batting title, like we were talking about. So, could there be lineup goofs as well? Sure, but like we don't even know who's going to be in the lineup in these games, right? Like there's so many roster decisions yet to be made. Like, is Ballesteros going to be on the playoff roster? Is Owen Casey going to be healthy by then? Is Kyle Tucker going to be healthy? There's so many things up in the air right now that we literally can't even, it's hard to speculate on what it's going to happen until we actually see it play out in the playoffs.
Marver, what do you think the importance of Craig Counsell, what he brings to the table, why they brought him in the first place? How big of an impact? How much of the success coming out of the NL wild card heading into an NLDS possibly falls on the skipper of the Chicago Cubs?
Well, I will say at $8 million a year, he should be a factor. and he does have a history of handling bullpens well, and his days with the Brewers would indicate that he can perform well in the playoffs. I mean, they never won a championship, did they? But on the other hand, he does have that experience. And with this roster, I mean, that if you kind of look back to before the All-Star break, they can somehow capture the offense that they had then, which they've shown signs of lately, then they'd be in good shape, because I think the pitching can hold its own for the most part. And even with the glitches that they've had, they do have guys like Assad and Brown that can pick up a lot of innings if they need to. So they have that too, in addition to the reliable bullpen people that were just mentioned. So it seems like they have an abundance of pitchers. In the old days, it was like, you'd be able to name the starters and maybe 4 people. It seems like they have like a couple dozen guys, even though it's not that many. But it seems like they have enough pitching to really cover the situation. And of course, a lot of that's because of DH. You don't need pinch hitters and whatnot. But I think that this lineup, even with the injuries that they've had and some of the people that haven't been hitting, will hit well enough, in the playoffs to do well. I mean, after all, they were able to light up the Pirates and perhaps Cy Young Award winner this week. So, I mean, if they can light him up, they can probably light anybody up.
And that's the hope, right? Is that it all kind of comes together and that they're gelling and at some point getting healthy, or as healthy as any team can get at this point of the season. The question is, if the other teams are going to cooperate with you and let you go and walk your way to World Series. Rich, before we let you go, what are you working on? What are you interested in? What is something that kind of has been in the topic? Because I know you guys do amazing work over on Cubs on Tap. You've written some amazing stuff over at Cubby's Crib. So we know you're constantly writing and thinking about this team and trying to find different ways, different avenues to kind of dissect them and really get to understand where this team can end up at the end of what all this is, hopefully a very successful season. Before we get into our predictions in a few weeks, what are you thinking about? What do you have? What's exciting you? What are kind of the emotions heading into the last few weeks of this Cubs season that you really are concentrating on, whether it's stories, the podcast, or anything heading into a wild card series?
Yeah, I mentioned this on the Cubs on Tap podcast last night. It's just, I think it's really fun that we're where we are right now, because this is the best Cubs team. This is the first time they've won more than 84 games since 2018. I mean,
that's crazy. That's crazy to think about that. It's actually been before 2020. So you know what I mean? Like before COVID was the last time we've seen something like this.
It's been about 7 years since we've had a Cubs team this good. Michael Busch and PCA are at 29 home runs. The Cubs haven't even had a 30 home run player since Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber did it in 2019. So like we are witnessing the best Cubs team of the 2020s right now so far. So I think it's important, it's fun to keep that in perspective, right? Like we are pretty lucky where we are right now, because we've seen a lot of hot trash Cubs teams over the last few years who have fallen short of, coming to the playoffs. So we're clinching a playoff spot, we'll hopefully make a little bit of a run here and make some noise, and we'll see what happens in the offseason, but like I'm just kind of enjoying where we are right now, right? Like, and if the Cubs can get hot and go into the playoffs hot, like weird stuff could happen, man. Like crazy stuff could happen. So I don't know. I'm just kind of enjoying the fact that we are where we are, because it has been so long.
I love that you bring that up. Context matters is something that we talk about here. Sports from the couch to Sports Cubicle. It's something that we hark on, is also context, right? This is an amazing season. This has been a fun series. There's been some frustrations. There's been great moments. At times we were talking about having an MVP on this team.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for those damn Milwaukee Brewers having one of the best seasons they've ever had.
Hey, we're going to have probably a Rookie of the Year, a couple of Gold Glove winners, maybe a batting title from Nico Horner. Those are all very cool things as well. And then the other thing too, like one of the things that always comes to mind is like, I don't think the Cubs have made me feel something in a playoff game since 2017 when Wade Davis struck out Bryce Harper in the NLDS. Like that's how long it's been since we've had a chance for a Cubs team to make us feel something in the playoffs. Because in 2018 they got they lost game 163 and then got swept out in the wild card game against the Rockies. Like it was just horrendous. We've seen some horrendous things, and I don't count 2020 at all because that was whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the Cubs haven't made the playoffs at all in the 2020. So here we are. Like, we have a chance to do something cool and awesome for the Cubs or Cubs fandom in Chicago. And no other Chicago teams are doing us sports fans any favors right now.
It keeps us from talking about the Blackhawks, Bulls, and most importantly, the Chicago Bears. Rich Eberwein, you can check him out on Cubs on Tap on Cubby's Crib, and of course, right here on the mothership at Heartland Signal. You can always catch the marvelous one, Dan Marver, here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports for the Couch. It's almost his time of year as we get ready for college basketball and the NBA and all these other stuff. So Marvelous is getting himself ready for that. It's going to be a great time. We'll be making sure to cover everything MLB playoffs. We'll do our predictions and our previews in just a couple of weeks. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But that's not the only story we got to talk about on this edition of Sports Cubicle. So make sure you guys stay right here on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, on WSBC 1240 AM Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you, Rich. You're the best, brother.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.